The Herbcrafters Tarot is gorgeous, but it is not a deck that I think you can just pick up and read like a Rider-Waite-Smith. That is why I'm creating a long-term study plan for it, and I want to show you how I'm going to go about it. Before we get into it, this video was chosen for you today by my patrons, so a big thank you to my members over there. If you would like to join and help choose what I create every month, as well as getting access to exclusive tarot spreads, videos, and access to the Tarot Lab, there is a link in the description to my Patreon page. So let's talk about what a deck study is, why I am choosing the Herbcrafters tarot to work with, and the personal curriculum I am building around this deck. In my opinion, when you get right down to it, a deck study is the study of a particular deck. So it's not just a tarot study, but it is looking at the particular imagery and symbolism and structure of a single deck, as well as comparing it to other decks and to standard systems like the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Tarot de Marseille, or the Thoth. And the reason that I am choosing the Herbcrafters Tarot to do a deck study with, although there is a list as long as my arm of decks that I would like to work with, the reason for the Herbcrafters is because it's one I've had for a few years, and it is one that I am keen to get to know better and have been keen to get to know better for ages now. I've said this before, but I have no real knowledge of herbalism or plants, but I would like to have some knowledge. It's something that interests me, that I think is really cool. It's just not something that I've ever really dipped my toe into before. And I would like particularly to feel more fluent with this deck because it's really not one that you can read like a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. By the way, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on what I mean by that, check out my recent types of tarot decks in my collection video of the types of tarot deck I would look for if I was building my collection from scratch. So basically, I want to get to know this deck. I want to get to know it better. I want to feel more confident reading with it. And I want some background info. I want to be able to contextualize this deck. I want to have enough herbalism, plant-based knowledge that I feel fairly confident, fairly comfortable with why each of the plants is in each of the cards in this deck. So my intended personal Herbcrafters curriculum involves kind of two angles, probably unsurprisingly. I want to study the tarot side of things. So by that, I mean looking at how the deck has been structured, how the world of herbalism has been mapped onto the tarot cards, and how the tarot archetypes are crossed over with the plants that are explored in the deck. So that is the tarot side of things. That includes actual readings, interpreting this in a tarot context. And then the other side of this is, of course, the herbalism angle on this deck. And with that, I want to learn about the plants themselves. So my goals for this aren't too specific because I don't know what I'm going to find interesting or compelling until I actually start digging into it. So I don't have any specific goals for what I want to learn or what I want to achieve with the herbalism side of things, but I do have some ideas of how I'm going to go about it. So for the tarot angle, I want to document the cards, work with the guidebook, cross-reference the plants and the tarot archetypes. Like I said, I would like to do some kind of comparison with a Rider-Waite-Smith, maybe a Marseille, maybe a Thoth deck, and sort of see how the card is expressed differently in each system and then expressed in this deck with the plants and the herbs associated with it. I also really want to try out all the spreads in the guidebook. There are a few tarot spreads that I don't know that I've ever done before. As I film this, I've also just recently had a birthday, so this year ahead spread is kind of calling to me as well. I think it would be cool to maybe work with this year ahead spread, see what cards come up, and maybe I can use those as my starting point for the actual herbalism study portion of this deck study. Mostly, I just want to read with this deck and really spend some time in it and spend some time in my tarot journal with it in particular. So this isn't going to be quick studies because whenever I use this deck, my goal is to reach for the guidebook, maybe reach for some other resources and kind of really dig into the individual cards. So I think a lot of this study is going to be less about reading with this deck and more about getting to know the cards individually. So although I do want to try some spreads and try and make meaning from like read it like a tarot deck, if that makes sense. I want to read this like a tarot deck, but I think at least to begin with, my deck study is going to focus more on the plants behind the cards. So that brings us to the herbalism portion of my deck study plans. And this is where most of the actual like study or new to me information is going to come in. And my main goal is that I want to slowly write my own herbal, write my own compendium. Thank you, Isha, Activist Witch, for the inspiration for this. They commented on one of my videos saying that that's what they did. They went through and had like a herbal, and they were using that to help interpret and understand this deck. And I thought that was genius. And so I'm going to copycat that idea and work through the guidebook, work through some other resources, and kind of build up my own field guide to the herbs that are in this deck. I have no real plan for how I will work through the cards. Maybe I will pull them at random, maybe doing something like that year ahead spread and kind of using those cards as a starting point. I would quite like to have do a little bit of research and kind of group the cards based on what's seasonally available to me where I live. So I live in Scotland, and I would like to maybe prioritize the cards that are more familiar to me. Like as I pull these, we've got oak and blackberry. It's maybe a little bit past blackberry season where I live, but you know what I mean? I kind of want to focus on those that grow locally to me and work with them a little bit seasonally. I think that would be really cool. I found some good online resources, and I might also use this deck study as an excuse to treat myself to the Dirt Gems Oracle, which is another plant based oracle that has been on my list. I think it would be cool to maybe use decks in combination and see how different decks have interpreted the plants. That also brings me to my little astro-herbalism portion. If this was a university course, I would be taking on an additional astro-herbalism like module. So I have this deck, the Herbal Astrology Oracle, and I would like to somehow work this in to supplement my Herbcrafters deck study. This deck I know has a lot of the same plants. I expect a lot of the plants are not the same. And this also has some astrological correspondences. And astro-herbalism is something that it just makes sense, especially with the seasonality of this deck and how I was talking about pulling out the cards that are sort of seasonally appropriate for me. And the idea of that year ahead spread is based on the seasons and the equinoxes and the solstices. And that very naturally connects to astrology in my brain. And astrological herbalism is something that has been piquing my interest lately. So I am also intending to combine this with my Herbcrafters personal curriculum. I'm not entirely sure what form that is going to take. It's definitely supplementary. Astro-herbalism or herbal astrology is something that feels kind of big and intimidating because I know a little bit about astrology, but I think I know about it in a very different context to like I think it's more like similar to medical astrology. Maybe I could very well be wrong, but it's something I would like to have a bit of a think about, do a little bit of research about. I have again found some good online resources. I will share on the Patreon post for the early access for this video. By the way, if you join us on Patreon, you get early access to my YouTube videos. And I will share a list of the resources that I found that I think might be helpful with this tarot deck Herbcrafter study. So yeah, I'm not sure what form this is going to take. I think I will just work with the Herbcrafters, and then if there is overlap with this deck, I'll pull this in. I'll also have think like lavender is for sure in the Herbcrafters deck. I think yarrow might be, sage probably is. I don't think there's like 100% overlap, and there are fewer cards in the Herbal Astrology Oracle anyway, so there couldn't be 100% overlap, but I think it'll be interesting to bring it in. As for like books and other resources, I am mainly relying on online resources for things like plant profiles, and I think Culpepper's Herbal has got to be available freely because it's so old that I'm sure it must be like out of copyright. I must be able to find a copy of that online. And I think Cunningham's Herbal is also one that I might look into. I think Cunningham's is a little bit more on the like magical side of things, so that might blend a little bit better with the like herbal astrology deck and what I'm doing with that. I also do have a couple of books that I haven't really dug much into, and I think this would be the perfect opportunity to bring them out. I have Plant Magic by Gregory J. Kenneser, and this is published by the Royal Botanical Garden at Edinburgh, which is local to me. I got this book from the Botanic Gardens, and this has plenty of plant profiles and what their uses are. There might not be 100% overlap, but I expect most of the plants in the Herbcrafters deck I will be able to find in this book. So this is definitely going to be a good starting point for adding another resource alongside the Herbcrafters guidebook. I will say the Herbcrafters guidebook I do think is a really good guidebook. I really enjoy it. It's full of recipes. I want to try some of the recipes as well. That's definitely part of my deck study, is that I want to try out some of the recipes, especially the easier things like teas and pesto. Like I can make those without too much difficulty. And I think that will be really interesting. And then the other book I have here, I'm not sure how relevant this will be or if this is kind of supplementary material. This is Witch's Forest. This is published by the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew and is written by Sandra Lawrence. Trees in Magic, Folklore and Traditional Remedies. First of all, I obviously adore this pink. If you know me, this is not a surprise. And this is obviously only going to have some overlap with the deck because the deck is not, there are some trees in the deck, it's not full of trees. And I think I might just kind of flick through this as like another kind of supplementary book. I just think it would be interesting. I've had this for a while and I haven't really dug into it very much, but I imagine that at least some of the trees that are in the Herbcrafters book will also be in this. We've got like shrubbery and things as well, so it'll be interesting to see what this book has to say. I come from enough of an academic background that I always want to find multiple sources for things. I always want to find information from various places and kind of cross-reference and like think critically about it, I guess. So that is also partly why I am desperate to build as big a reference library as possible, because I just feel happier if I find a piece of information in several sources rather than just one. So this is less plant profiles and more like mythology profiles, which I think will be cool. Just like fun extra information to have. Like here we go, oak. I just pulled the oak card out in the Herbcrafters deck. So this is not going to be the like medicinal type of information that the Herbcrafters is aimed at. This is more like folklore, folk magic, like inspecting an oak apple on Michaelmas. Hey, that's my birthday, 29th of September. Will tell you what next year's weather is going to be like. So it's more like folklore, folk magic, bits of history, which I think is definitely very interesting and will be fun to kind of add into the mix. So those are my thoughts on planning a deck study for the Herbcrafters Tarot. I am hopeful that this will allow me to bring together the tarot structure as well as the new herb-based knowledge that I'm going to be gathering about the plants themselves. This certainly isn't going to be a quick study. I'm anticipating this taking months. This is the kind of thing I might not ever be finished with, and that's fine by me. But if you want to kind of see some updates as this unfolds, do let me know. This is definitely a looser kind of deck study. It's not really about studying the tarot. It's about using the tarot as a vehicle to study herbalism. I'm very much looking forward to it. I have refrained from buying a whole new notebook, which I think is very strong and brave of me. But there we have it. If you've worked with this deck or you've studied herbalism alongside tarot before, I would love to hear what resources or practices helped you. If you've liked this video, I've got several more about deck studies and journaling for you to watch. I will link the playlist. Once again, thank you to my patrons for choosing this video. Links to everything will be in the description. My Patreon, my Etsy. Readings are paused for the moment, but they will be back up again in November. But in the meantime, you can still buy my tarot spread zines. And I hope you'll join us over on Patreon, over the Tarot Lab. We're doing numerology this month. If you liked this video, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.